Revelation chapter 17. Am I coming through the fullback as well?
Yes. You have a bad echo.
I'm not. Okay.
You have an echo.
Usually when I have that sort of echo, I'm usually coming through the fullback. No worries. Not a problem. Revelation chapter 17. Those of you who still have your handout, do you have did we start any of the blanks? No. Okay. Does anyone not have a handout? There you go. All right, Revelation chapter 17. We're going to start this study on the mystery of Babylon. And again, we're going to look at a couple of things, and I have some photos when we get to it to be able to look at. We sort of touched on it a little bit last week. But I'm going to make a statement, and you're going to look at me and go, duh. Maybe not audibly, but maybe mentally. You ready for the statement? The world is changing at an alarming rate. Have we figured that out yet? That's one of the reasons why I like to sometimes sit down and talk to some folks that are older. You say, why? Because the amount of change, say someone's 100 years old or 80, 90 years old, the amount of change they've seen in their lifespan is phenomenal. I'm just thinking, and we've only been here in Australia for almost 20 years. And the amount of change we've seen in the 20 years we've been here, when we first got here, I remember Pastor Ed telling me, if you have a handout and you don't have a printer at home, you better have it printed by 5 o'clock on Friday. And I said, why? They said, because nowhere will be open to print it on Saturday or Sunday. You either print it by 5 o'clock on Friday or you don't print it at all. And I went, okay, yeah, sure. He wasn't lying either. There was nowhere to print it at 5 o'clock on Friday. And we figured that out yet. And then I remember nothing was open on Saturday. And then all of a sudden stuff started opening on Saturday. And then nothing was open on Sunday. And then stuff started opening on Sunday. And there's just been a lot of different changes and those type of things. But the longer you live, the more change you're going to see. Now, the first area that the world is changing in, it is changing in terms of knowledge. In terms of knowledge. A man by the name of, don't name your kid this, Buckminster Fuller. All right, Buckminster. All right, yeah, that's the guy's name, Buckminster, Buckminster. Created what you'd call the knowledge doubling curve. I'm not sure if you've ever heard about that. He noticed that up until the end of the 19th century, human knowledge doubled approximately every century. Okay? By the end of World War II, knowledge was doubling every 25 years rather than every 100 years. Then today, things aren't that simple anymore. Let's just say knowledge is doubling every 25 years. You say, what do you mean? Different types of knowledge have different types of growth rates they've worked out. For example, nanotechnology is doubling every 2 years, they say, the technology of the nanotechnology. Clinical knowledge is doubling every 18 months. On the average, human knowledge is doubling every 13 months. And according to a computer company, the building out of the Internet of Things will lead to doubling of knowledge every 12 hours. The more internet. Now, how many of you said there's a lot of things in the world that you know now because you got Google? One of the worst inventions in the world is Dr. Google. You know, you ever met Dr. Google? Yeah. I may Google my symptoms. And you know, this something that normally you would be going, oh, I got an ache and a pain. Now all of a sudden it's like, I've got a tumor and I'm going to have a brain aneurysm and I'm about to die and I got to get into the doctor. And the doctor looks at you and goes, you pinched a nerve. Take 2 of these and go lay down. You know, but by the time a little pinched nerve and your mind has all these same symptoms as an aneurysm, as a brain tumor, as, you know, on and on we go. So some knowledge is not good, but it says it will get to that point, all right? So we're changing an area of knowledge. We're all getting somewhere with this. Now, second thing, things are also rapidly changing geographically and economically. Geographically. In the last 25 to 30 years, 10 new countries have emerged. 10. You say, what are they? Montenegro in 1996, the Czech Republic in 1993, East Timor in 2002, Eritrea on the Horn of West Africa in 91, Slovakia in 93, Palau in 94, Serbia in 1990, Bosnia-Herzegovina, however you say that again, in 96, Kazakhstan in 91, and Montenegro, Kosovo in 2008. All of those are newer countries. Now, some of you only grew up knowing them as countries, but they weren't always countries. All right? Economically, get this one. Are you ready for this? When do you think the first credit card was ever issued? And this could be different, vary based on which country, but we're talking like the first credit card of credit cards, not like the first credit card in Australia. 51. 1951. The first credit card. And it was a Diners Club, was the credit card. It wasn't like a Visa, it wasn't MasterCard, it was Diners Club. All right? That's what you need. You can go out to eat and put it on credit. They talked about eating money right there. Anyways, it was there in 1951. Today, we have all kinds of credit cards. We have debit cards, we have PayPal, we have Apple Pay, we have Google Pay, and we have Cash Apps, we have, and on it goes, doesn't it? A few countries like Sweden and Denmark almost have completely gone cashless. Not hard to imagine, is it? Especially since now, like, that's been used from everything to do with COVID has been used to go cashless. Now, many digital payments used to be made by a thumbprint. What are they made by now? Your face. Facial recognition. So you double tap it, go like that. It looks at your face, goes, yep, that's you. Click. Unless you're like my daughter who can double tap my wife's phone and it looks at her face and goes, yay, Melissa, you can pay the bill. And then and I guess in America, she decided that she was going to double tap Brianna's phone and see how that worked. And guess what? Her face unlocks her card too. So it's not always the most secure. If your children look a lot like a particular member of your family and a lot like each other, it can create some fun. Or maybe that's how she bought all those Vera Bradley bags in America, and her account just never went down. Anyways. Yes. So we have all those type of things. Third way, the world's changing. It's changing with world religions. Religions are changing. In what you call the West, there is a huge rise in Islam, in Wiccan stuff, like Wiccan and witchcraft, and there's a huge rise in that. You realize there's some areas in Australia where Wiccan and witchcraft is a higher percentage than Christianity in recent surveys? Yeah, like the occult stuff actually has a higher percentage of adherents than Christianity does in several prominent places within our own country. All of those things are rising. And as Islam rises and as the occult rises, Christianity decreases. And within Christianity, there is a departure from traditional doctrines, traditional values, and traditional worship. Christianity itself is changing, and it shouldn't be changing, because if we're based on the unchanging Word of God, we should be the same, correct? But even Christianity is changing. And finally, things are changing politically. Has anyone noticed that the world is getting smaller by the second? Like, smaller by the second. Things like you never think of before. I can't tell you how many people that I've said to someone, "Oh, hi, we've just met," and yet we share like these connections that are like crazy connections. Like, how did you know so and so? Oh yeah, I remember when we were in the States, I met someone, and they said, "Oh," when I was going to Michigan, I said, "Oh, I'm having a lunch with a couple in Michigan." They're like, "Oh, who's the couple in Michigan?" I said, "Bob and Debbie Saul." They looked at me and said, "How did you know the Sauls?" And I'm like, "You know the Sauls?" They're like, "Yeah." And I mean, we're down in Atlanta. And they're like, "Oh, I went to Bible college with them. How do you know him?" "Oh, she was my first grade teacher." And they looked at me like, "Oh, you just made me feel old." And I said, "Yeah, probably." But the world's smaller. Or we have someone in our church, Haley, who the first day she visited our church was the week that Brianna started working at the Bill Rice Ranch. Her first job out of Bible college was working at the Bill Rice Ranch. You're sitting there scratching your head going, how does that one work? It's the other side of the world. The world's getting smaller by the minute. Hey, you could text. I can text our missionaries. By the way, in a second, I'll give you the update, but I text Brother Portillo and said, "How's the visa situation going?" Amazingly, within 2 minutes, I had a response. Because I made sure it was a reasonable hour. I wasn't texting him at like 3 a.m. expecting him to respond. There is a wonderful invention. It's called the world clock on your phone. And before you text or call someone in another country, it might be a good idea to add their country to your world clock and just look. You say, why do you say that? Because I don't know how many folks in America still have not realized that technology exists. And yet you still get calls at like 2 a.m, 3 a.m, 4 a.m, and then they expect you to be up and cheering and happy. And like, what do you want? Oh, did I wake you up? It's 3 a.m. What do you think? But you can't say that because it's usually a pastor. And he's like, "That's okay, brother. How you doing?" But the world's getting smaller. Like you can type something on your phone, hit a button, boom, and then they can boom, and within 2 minutes, you've talked to someone on the other side of the planet that you never used to be able to do. And that's changed even in the last 20 years. When we first moved here, we talked to our family maybe once a fortnight. You say, why? It was a very expensive phone call. It was expensive. It was like $10-15 to call my mom. It was like $30, $40, $50 to call Melissa's parents who were in Mexico. Now, we can call them anytime we want. We still only talk to them once every fortnight. No, I'm just joking. Some of them we talk to more than others. But you can do it very easily now. You say, why? The world is changing, and it's becoming smaller politically. Global economies, businesses. You go on different websites or different things like Amazon. You can pay in one currency, and you can buy stuff from literally all over the world. And they get paid in their currency, and you pay in your currency. A little thing called PayPal, you can pay anywhere. It's just really small. It's not far-fetched to think that there could be one economy. All right, so those are the ways the world's changing. Then we're going to ask, where is the world heading? And we're going to define the term mystery in a biblical sense as we continue to look at this mystery of Babylon, this woman that rides the beast, and this scarlet beast that she rides. And so we'll continue this on next week. We'll just pause now so we have time to pray and take some prayer requests. And it's just, to me, it's an interesting thing when you start looking at all these different things and how things are literally lining up more than they've ever done so before. All right, just an update. We've been praying for